It was me and my girlfriend's first Halloween together. My girlfriend made plans for us to go to a pumpkin patch, pick out our own pumpkins, and carve them together that evening. Halloween was actually the following week, but she wanted to put them in the window for decoration anyway. We get there and it's a huge field that stretches way back to a wooded tree line. I'd never seen so many pumpkins in one place. First, my girlfriend wanted to visit the gift shop and have lunch at the cafe. Then we got in line for a hayride deep into the pumpkin patch. As the tractor pulled the wagon, the driver told us about the specialty pumpkins they had. I thought all pumpkins were orange, but they had white ones, grayish-blue ones, pink, green, and multicolored ones. They had real little ones and giant sizes that I hoped my girlfriend wouldn't pick because I didn't want to have to carry it back. At one point in the tour, the driver stopped and announced that we were in the you-pick section. A bunch of people got off the hay wagon, including me and my girlfriend, while a group of other people climbed onto the wagon carrying pumpkins. The driver told us that he would come through every half hour or so, and we could catch a ride anytime. My girlfriend pulled me away from the other people, heading us deeper into the pumpkin patch toward the woods. She seemed to have fun turning pumpkins in different directions, trying to find one with a flat front so she could carve a scary face into it. I went along with her, getting on my hands and knees looking for my own pumpkin. Suddenly, she shoved me down on the ground and jumped on top of me. She was making a move on me, if you know what I mean, and it was kind of sexy. I'd never done it in a pumpkin patch, but I wasn't going to complain. After playing around a little bit, we decided to head into the woods so no one could see us. We were running through the maze of pumpkins, hopping over them, zigzagging between rows until the field turned into tall grasses with nothing else growing there. The woods weren't too far away, but my girlfriend laid down on her back in the weeds and said that no one could see us there. I didn't argue, but before I could lay down next to her, she rolled over and was crawling towards something. Then she started screaming. She looked up at me with huge eyes, and I could tell she was really terrified. She jumped to her feet, hid behind me, and pointed to a spot in the tall grass. I was trying to get her to tell me what was wrong, but she just kept pointing and saying, "Holy," over and over again. I got down on my hands and knees and crawled toward the spot she was pointing. I saw part of a shoe. I pushed some of the weeds back and saw that the shoe was attached to a person's leg. A horrible smell hit me, almost made me gag as I got closer. Pushing more grass out of the way, I saw the girl's face. It was all bloated, and her eyes were open and bulging out. There were maggots crawling out of her open mouth. It is something I wish I'd never seen, because I still have bad dreams about it years later. I got up and backed away. It was shocking. My girlfriend was asking me what we should do. She said at first she thought it was one of those gray pumpkins, so she got closer, thinking it would be the perfect pumpkin to bring home in memory of our visit to the pumpkin patch, but then she realized it wasn't a pumpkin. I was still kind of in shock, but that helped me stay calm while I tried to calm my girlfriend down and think straight. I looked around and saw how far we were from any people in the farm, so I decided to get proof of what we saw and mark the spot close to where we found the body. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, got back down on the ground, crawled closer to the body again and took a picture. Then I got up and tied the sleeves of my jacket around a clump of grass near the body, so I could find where the body was again. Then we went back to where the hay wagon had dropped us off. It seemed like forever before we finally made it back to the gift shop. I pulled the cashier aside and told her quietly that we had found a dead body in the pumpkin patch. At first she laughed and gave me a weird look. I told her we were serious and she needed to call the police. I showed her the picture I had taken. She disappeared into a back room, then a manager, or maybe the owner, came out, looked at. The manager looked at my picture and asked us to stay until the police arrived. The farm shut down all activity in the pumpkin patch. The cops found the body and blocked off the area. They interviewed me and my girlfriend, had me delete the photo off my phone, and sent us home. And that was it. I called the police department a few times trying to get information, but they would only tell me they were still investigating or that they couldn't give me details. We never saw anything on the news about that body discovered at a local farm. It's been years now, but I still sometimes search the internet trying to find out who the girl was and what happened to her. Just recently, I spoke to a new friend who is also a local police officer. She mentioned that if it was a suicide or a drug overdose, out of respect for the privacy of the family, there might never be any available public information. We never did get a pumpkin from the patch that year, but I ended up with a wife that I love dearly, and the story of a dead body that still creeps us out to this day. My wife and I used to host an adults-only Halloween costume party at our home each year. We usually invited around 50 people, some from my job that my wife might not know, some of her co-workers that I didn't know, and then our mutual friends, family, and neighbors. Not everyone we invited could come, but it always turned out to be a big crowd, usually 25 to 30 people. Our only rule was that you must wear a costume that conceals your identity and try to stay in character throughout the evening so that no one could guess who you were. About halfway through the party, we'd have a costume contest where everyone modeled their costume. We all voted and then announced the winners. Then you could relax a little and let people know who you were. People got into it and tried their best to disguise their voices until the contest was over. It made the party more fun and mysterious. We have a large backyard that's great for entertaining, and the weather this time of year is really comfortable, so our guests could freely wander between the inside and outside of our house. There were different activities set up like bucket ball, which is a giant version of beer pong, cornhole, and a giant dice game. We had amazing food and like a fire going outside where guests could roast eyeballs, a skewered tongue, or a severed hand over the fire. It was real food just doctored up in a horror theme. And if you remember that TV show Fear Factor, we had a Fear Factor food buffet with gross-looking but perfectly edible food. I actually miss having these parties, but something pretty awful happened about 5 years ago, and my wife still hasn't gotten over it. She refuses to have another Halloween party. That night, everything was going great. People were having a good time. But then my sister came up to me. I remember she was dressed as a swamp hag, but I knew it was her. She put her head near mine so no one else could hear her and asked if I'd set up some sound effects in the bathroom. I told her no. She laughed nervously but told me she was really freaked out. She'd been in the bathroom with the door shut and started hearing creepy whispers and heavy breathing. It sounded like someone was in the bathroom with her. I told her I'd go check it out. I searched inside the bathroom and out in the hallway but didn't find anyone or anything out of place. Soon after that, my wife rushed up to me and told me that some friends of ours, Mac and Jenny, were leaving, and they were pretty upset. Apparently, Jenny insisted that there was real blood in the punch. She said that as a nurse, she knew exactly what real blood looked and tasted like, and it was not a funny practical joke. My wife said she checked the punch bowl and sure enough the liquid was red, but it had been a green color earlier when she'd made the recipe and set it out. So she took it into the kitchen so no one else would drink it and we could figure it out later. She felt bad that her friend Jenny was so mortified by it and was actually leaving, and she wondered if it really was blood and who would have done that to the punch. It was kind of unsettling, but the party went on. Then I heard someone say really loudly, "This is disgusting." I stepped out into the backyard and saw a group of people hovering over an area of the food buffet. One of them poked something around with a fork, then they put their plates, which were filled with food, into the garbage can and walked away. So I walked over to the food table to see what was going on. Right in the center of a plate of meatballs was a gutted rat. The rat was sliced open from its neck to its tail and laid flat so its guts were exposed and kind of oozing out onto the plate. Its head was intact, so there was no doubt it was a rat. I remember moving it around and poking it with a fork to see if it was fake or something. There was nothing fake about it. Obviously, we had not put it there. Before I could figure out what to do about it, my friend Luke showed me a piece of meat on his plate. He was about to cook it over the fire, but his wife told him not to eat it. She thought it looked too real and too weird compared to the other horror-themed meat we put out at the fire. She was right. It wasn't our food. I brought his plate inside to show my wife. She was horrified. We immediately shut down the party and called the police. They came and investigated, but they couldn't find any evidence of who had done it. They said it was possible that it was someone who had been invited to the party, but it was also possible that it was someone who had crashed the party. We never found out who did it, but it was clear that they were trying to scare us and our guests. It worked. We haven't had a Halloween party since. My wife is still traumatized by the experience. She can't even think about Halloween without having flashbacks. I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to have a Halloween party again, but I still think about the girl who was found dead in the pumpkin patch all those years ago. I wonder if she's connected to the person who tried to ruin our Halloween party. I hope that one day we'll find out who did it and why. Years after the Halloween party incident, I was still haunted by the memories of the dead girl in the pumpkin patch and the mysterious attacker at the party. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were somehow connected. One day I was browsing the internet when I came across a news article about a cold case that had been reopened. The article was about the murder of a young woman named Sarah Miller, who had been found dead in a pumpkin patch 10 years ago. The article mentioned that the police had recently received a new tip in the case. The tipster claimed that they had seen someone carrying Sarah's body into the pumpkin patch on the night of her murder. I immediately contacted the police and told them about my experience at the pumpkin patch and the party. I also told them about the strange things that had happened at the party, like the blood in the punch and the gutted rat. The police were intrigued by my story. They asked me to come in for an interview. I told them everything I knew, including the fact that I had seen a figure disappearing into the woods on the night of the party. The police thanked me for my information and told me that they would be in touch if they had any new developments. A few weeks later, I received a phone call from the detective who was working on Sarah's case. He told me that they had arrested a suspect. The suspect was a man named John Doe. Doe was a drifter who had been living in the woods near the pumpkin patch at the time of Sarah's murder. He had a history of violence against women. Doe denied killing Sarah, but the police had enough evidence to charge him with her murder. He went on trial and was convicted. He is currently serving a life sentence in prison. I am relieved that Sarah's killer has been brought to justice. However, I still have many unanswered questions. Why did Doe kill Sarah? Was he the same person who tried to ruin my Halloween party? And what happened to the other strange things that happened at the party? I may never know the answers to these questions, but I am grateful that Sarah's family finally has some closure. Years after John Doe was convicted of Sarah Miller's murder, I was still haunted by the memories of that night. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than what had been revealed in court. One day I was talking to my wife about the case when she had a thought. What if Doe wasn't acting alone, she asked. What if he was part of a group that's obsessed with death and horror? I had never considered that possibility before, but it made sense. After all, the things that had happened at my Halloween party were too strange and coordinated to be the work of one person. I started doing some research on online forums and websites dedicated to the occult and dark tourism. I quickly discovered that there was a community of people who were fascinated by death and horror. Some of these people even engaged in disturbing rituals and reenactments of famous crimes. I began to wonder if John Doe had been involved in one of these groups. Maybe he had been tasked with carrying out Sarah Miller's murder as part of some twisted initiation ritual. I decided to reach out to a private investigator named Jack Stone. Stone was known for his expertise in unsolved cases and the occult. I told him about my theory and asked him to investigate. Stone agreed to take on the case. He spent several months interviewing people and gathering evidence. He also infiltrated online forums and chat rooms where Doe had been active. What Stone discovered was shocking. He learned that Doe had been part of a secret society called the Order of the Black Sun. The order was dedicated to the worship of death and darkness. Its members believed that they were superior to ordinary humans and that they were destined to rule the world. The order had a long history of violence and crime. Stone discovered that the order had been responsible for several unsolved murders, including Sarah Miller's. Stone also learned that the order was planning something big. They were planning a mass sacrifice on the next Halloween. They wanted to sacrifice a large number of people in order to open a portal to another dimension. Stone knew that he had to stop the order, but he couldn't do it alone. He needed my help. I agreed to help Stone. We spent the next few weeks planning our attack. We knew that the Order would be expecting us, so we had to be careful. On Halloween night, we infiltrated the Order's secret compound. We fought our way through the Order's members and managed to stop the sacrifice. However, Doe managed to escape. We've been searching for Doe ever since. We know that he's still out there, and we know that he's planning something. We're determined to stop Doe and the Order once and for all. But we know that it won't be easy. The Order is powerful and dangerous. But we're not afraid. We know that we're on the right side, and we're not going to give up. It's been a year since we stopped the Order of the Black Sun from carrying out their mass sacrifice. But we know that they're still out there, and we know that they're plotting revenge. We've been tracking Doe's movements, but he's always one step ahead of us. He's a master of disguise and evasion. We know that he's planning something big for this Halloween. He's been gathering supplies and recruiting new members. We're determined to stop him, but we need your help. If you see anything suspicious, please contact us immediately. We need to work together to prevent Doe and the Order from carrying out their evil plans. On Halloween night, we finally cornered Doe. He was in an abandoned warehouse surrounded by his followers. We fought our way through his followers and confronted Doe himself. He was armed with a knife, but we were able to disarm him. We took Doe into custody and charged him with multiple crimes, including conspiracy to commit murder and terrorism. Doe is currently awaiting trial. We're confident that he'll be convicted and sentenced to life in prison. With Doe behind bars, the Order of the Black Sun is weakened, but we know that they're still out there. We'll continue to monitor their activities and make sure that they never pose a threat to the public again. Thank you for your help. We couldn't have done it without you.